Sponsors: Adidas, Ray and Nephew, Sunshine Snacks, Water, Powerade, St. Mary's, True Shake, Stewart's, and Just Fat.
Being told if you with them, I gone with them till then sick. Say them I go box and thump and kick.
Join us this week on Tourism One-on-One as we examine how the tourism sector has been performing in the post-pandemic environment with Minister of Tourism, the Honorable Edmund Bartlett.
Everybody, I'm Yendi, and this is Odyssey with Yendi. In this space, we connect with some of your favorite people as they share their journeys. Here we have some unfiltered conversations as we deep dive into their inspirations, motivations, and experiences to inspire our own life journey.
Odyssey with Yendi. Brought to you by Grace, Singer, and IslandNet Services.
I'm Giovanni Dennis, and this is CVM News.
The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winfred Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
So much more than entertainment.
Be crowned the back-to-school champion parent with a Sagicor Bank unsecured loan.
The time by Sagicor Bank is
Tonight in CVM News at 7, PNP deeply concerned, allegations of vote buying and voter suppression. JLP describes PNP concerns as desperate and an attack on Jamaica's democratic process. Decision 2025, we have the latest updates on the final count and St. Mary man charged with murder of his brother. While in sports, ISA Schoolboy Football 2025-26 season kicks off at Stadium East. From Kingston, Jamaica, this is CVM News at 7 for Saturday, September 6, 2025. I am Curlin Brown. Thanks so much for joining us. And we begin with an update. The Electoral Office of Jamaica has provided more information on the progress of the final count for the September 3 general election. Counting has been completed in 45 constituencies with approximately 94% of the 7,294 boxes across the island counted up to that time. The counting of ballots continues for the other 18 constituencies by returning officers in the presence of the candidates and or their representatives. Now, up to 3 p.m. today, Saturday, the final count was complete for 2 of the 3 electoral divisions in the local government by-elections, namely Olympic Gardens and Denham Town. The count for Chancery Hall continues. Now, our newsroom has been informed after the completion of the final count in St. Thomas Easton for the contest involving Dr. Michelle Charles and former Morant Bay Mayor Yvonne Rose Shaw, the results remain the same. Yvonne Rose Shaw has secured the victory. On Friday, our newsroom reported that incumbent Donovan Williams of the JLP had regained the Kingston Central seat on the final count. The final count saw Williams tallying 4,832 votes to Steve McGregor's 4,753, a difference of 79 votes. On the night of the elections, the preliminary count indicated the PNP's McGregor had prevailed by 12 votes. Our newsroom will continue to provide updates as they become available. Meanwhile, in a post-election statement from the People's National Party issued on Saturday, the leadership expresses deep concerns about what it describes as the widespread reports of vote buying and voter suppression in the recent general election. The party, which lost by a handful of seats, calls on the Electoral Commission, law enforcement and civil society to take decisive steps to confront and eradicate such practices. The campaign spokesperson is Donna Scott Motley.
The People's National Party is deeply concerned about the widespread reports of vote buying and voter suppression in the recent general election, the long delays for voters at so many polling stations, and the refusal to allow persons in line at 5 p.m. to vote are also cause for concern. These practices strike at the very heart of our democracy, undermining the right of every Jamaican to freely choose their representatives without fear or inducement. While we respect the will of the people, we cannot ignore the corrosive effect of these illegal and immoral actions on public trust in the electoral process. And we call on the Electoral Commission, law enforcement, and civil society to take decisive steps to confront and eradicate these practices. We will use every platform available to promote critical reforms to our electoral laws to address these practices that undermine our democracy. Our democracy is too precious to be sold or stolen, and the PNP will continue to stand firm in defense of the Jamaican people's right to vote freely and without intimidation or coercion.
Now, the PNP says after all the data relating to the concerns have been compiled and fully reviewed, a press conference will be held to inform the public of its content. And the Jamaica Labour Party's spokesperson, Kamina Johnson-Smith, has reacted to the statements from the PNP. Johnson-Smith says the messaging seeks to denigrate the democratic process in Jamaica. She further describes the messaging as highly disappointing, pointing to the preliminary reports of both the CARICOM and the OAS electoral observation missions on the general election. Johnson-Smith says Jamaica's electoral processes and tradition of peaceful transition of power continue to be models for developed and developing countries alike. She adds the Jamaica Labour Party is also in the process of looking into feedback from its candidates regarding allegations of improper conduct by the PNP.
The statement issued by the PNP in respect of the electoral process is to be highly disappointing, and one that demonstrates that the Mark Golding-led party still has not learned that manufactured narratives and political mischief and lies will not win the hearts or trust of the Jamaican people. Jamaica's electoral processes and our tradition of peaceful transition of power, they continue to be models for developed and developing countries alike, and should therefore remain a source of pride for all Jamaican people, even as we know that there is always room for improvement and that we should always be vigilant. We should always be vigilant about any activities which could put our democracy at risk. And in this regard, I point to the preliminary reports of both the OAS and the CARICOM electoral missions, which have been entirely positive. I believe they have said that any of the hiccups which they observed were not detrimental to the process, and certainly they compared us favorably with our Caribbean brothers and sisters.
His purpose is admirable, but it must match Jamaica's purpose. That comment from the desk of political analyst and former public sector organization of Jamaica President Howard Mitchell, describing the Prime Minister designate while assessing the country's democratic process. Here is Crystal Williams with that story.
The Jamaica Labour Party, JLP, claimed 34 constituencies in this year's general election, while the People's National Party, PNP, polled the most votes in the other 29, a difference of 5 seats between the parties, compared to 2020, where the JLP secured 49 seats in Parliament, to the PNP's 14 with a difference of 35. Former president of the PSOJ, Howard Mitchell, says democracy should benefit from the results of this recent election.
Because the margin of victory is relatively small in terms of seats and is extremely small in terms of votes.
He commended the JLP on their campaign strategy, especially because he viewed it as underestimated.
The JLP, in terms of the marketing and the air campaign that the JLP ran, it started about 3 weeks before the election. And if you recall, the surveys at the time showed that the PNP were ahead. I personally thought that that they were in a difficult position, that they were exposed before this campaign started because they didn't seem to have a theme.
Mitchell also suggested that the People's National Party leader should be credited for his management of the campaign, showing maturity despite internal struggles.
2 years ago, the PNP had a bruising internal struggle, which divided the party considerably. And I think Golding calmed that down to some extent and brought the interests together.
He says the closeness was expected, comparing the two campaigns to establish some of the reasons why.
The JLP kind of lost touch with the electorate, and the PNP, for some period of time, even before the election was called, made a conscious effort to energize their base.
He says that as the new MPs get settled in, it will allow for a more balanced dialogue and energy in Parliament.
Hopefully, it will also mean that attendance at Parliament will improve, as people, in order to get their bills through, will have to depend on full attendance of either side to get the votes.
He concluded that the upcoming Parliament will be filled with vigor and vibrancy. Crystal Williams, CVM News.
The Jamaica Chamber of Commerce, the JCC, has extended congratulations to the Jamaica Labour Party, the JLP, on its electoral victory and commends the People's National Party, the PNP, for demonstrating resilience by significantly increasing its representation in Parliament by 15 seats, noting voter turnout this election was lower than desired, standing at 39.5%. The JCC highlights the need for urgent electoral reforms, whilst also admitting to concerns that the current voters list remains substantially inflated with names that should have been removed long ago. The Chamber is now calling for the comprehensive updating of the voters list to enhance confidence in the electoral process. In extending congratulations to the Jamaica Labour Party, the JLP, and its leader, Dr. Andrew Holness, on the victory in the recently concluded general election, Jamaicans for Justice JFJ is urging the incoming administration to resume what it describes as the vital work on constitutional reform with strong bipartisan efforts, ensuring an inclusive and participatory process. The group is encouraged by the party to pursue the outlined priorities in justice reform, national security, anti-corruption, governance, and plans to address gender-based violence and domestic violence contained in its manifesto. The JFJ also acknowledges the People's National Party, the PNP, for securing a significant number of parliamentary seats, which the organization suggests will contribute to a more balanced legislature, whilst also advocating for bipartisan efforts in parliamentary committees, including the appointment of opposition members as chairs to foster greater collaboration and accountability.
The organization looks forward to the formation of the new government, particularly the naming of a new cabinet, which we hope will reflect an energized, commitment to what the JLP outlined in their manifesto. We particularly look forward to the resumption of the constitutional reform process with greater and stronger bipartisan engagement, with greater public education efforts and consultation. And certain for us, we look forward to transformative proposals being put forward in the new phase of the constitutional reform. While JFJ certainly welcomes and look forward to the removal of the monarch, we believe that other things should be on the agenda. For example, exploring electoral reforms, greater accountability by citizens through mechanisms such as the right to recall, the entrenchment of key institutions, for example, the Electoral Commission of Jamaica. And we look forward to dialogue with the government on the establishment of a national human rights institution, which we have called for to be entrenched as it replaces the office of the public defender.
The Jamaica political scene has seen an increase in women taking a seat to serve the nation. 19 women are set to enter the House of Representatives following the general election. As the celebration continues, history has been created in Eastern Hanover, with the People's National Party's first female MP candidate to represent that constituency, Andrea Perkis. Here's Drusilla Mills with more.
She unseated the Jamaica Labour Party's Dave Brown by a relatively wide margin of 767 votes. Even on nomination day in August, Perkis was all smiles and confident, while incumbent Brown appeared uncertain of the results that would come.
In all fairness, I make a prediction in 2020 and I double that. I really don't want to predict this time around. I realize that this election will be a much closer election, but I think I should win.
I feel the support, I feel the love, and I can see the look on the faces of the Eastern Hanoverians that they're ready for change, they're ready for proper representation, and they're ready for Perkis.
The results came in, and the PNP supporters paraded through sections of Hopewell on election day with a makeshift coffin and a suitcase bearing the photos of Dave Brown, symbolically ushering him out. Perkis is excited about her win and is ready to work.
My plans going forward is to pay attention to what is most urgent, and that would be road and water. Sometimes I don't know which one is more urgent because both are really bad living situations for Eastern Hanoverians. I was pretty confident about the numbers that I got. I believe the margin is 767. I was pretty confident about it. I have been on the ground for 2 years almost, and within those 2 years, I connected with the people. They saw me for who I am. We had many conversations. I listened to them, and that's where I recognized that the needs are great.
Drusilla Mills reporting for CVM News.
And we will have more CVM News at 7 right after this.
I'm Giovanni Dennis, and this is CVM News.
everybody, I'm Yendi, and this is Odyssey with Yendi. In this space, we connect with some of your favorite people as they share their journeys. Here we have some unfiltered conversations as we deep dive into their inspirations, motivations, and experiences to inspire our own life journey.
Odyssey with Yendi, brought to you by Grace, Singer, and Island Services.
Join us this week on Tourism One-on-One as we examine how the tourism sector has been performing in the post-pandemic environment with Minister of Tourism, the Honorable Edmund Bartlett.
Welcome back. MP-elect for South East St. Catherine, Dr. Alfred Dawes, is looking forward to Portmore managing its own affairs, which he believes will allow him to put his expertise in health to better use for the residents. With a law already passed making Portmore a parish, Dawes wants to make every effort to ensure the health of the people comes first.
Dr. Alfred Dawes carrying the weight of a party loss at the general election. No smiles, no jubilation for securing victory at the polls as a first-time Member of Parliament.
It still hasn't sunken in. I mean, the feeling is really bittersweet now because we didn't make it nationally, but I have to be thankful that I am making it. But the celebration is a bit subdued in my head, but the constituents and the workers, they're loving it.
Newcomer Dawes, who defeated one-term Member of Parliament Robert Miller, is keen on getting to work in the constituency.
We are going to start the consultations with all the citizens associations. We're going to make the CDF, the Constituency Development Fund, a child of the constituency consultation. So you're not going to have a situation where the MP is telling you how it was spent. What we're going to sit and decide how the allocation is going to go. The other thing we want to really start advocating for is the Board of Health. We want to manage our own affairs. They've gone ahead and passed the law to make Portmore a parish. Even before that comes into reality, we want to have our own Board of Health.
And with that, Dawes says it will become easier to deal with a particular annoyance which will now receive priority attention.
Simple things like the vector control. We have a serious problem with mosquitoes, and that's coming from drain cleaning, which we're going to address immediately. And the vector control program, which is run by the Ministry of Health, we want to move that to the municipality right now. Let Portmore handle its own vector control. We would take charge of our own public health affairs. It won't be just the St. Catherine Health Department. And the prime example is going to immediately affect Portmore residents is that we will control our own fogging teams. So it won't be a fogging team that's spending 2 days in St. Catherine South and then another 2 days in Southeast St. Catherine, and then they're gone to other areas of St. Catherine. We will have a Portmore fogging team that's going to make sure that we are controlling the mosquitoes, and we can sit outside in the parks that we plan to rehabilitate and create additional green spaces that we are going to create.
Dawes, well aware of any resistance to his plans and expectations, is in advance entertaining more than optimistic thoughts.
With strong advocacy, I think we're a much stronger opposition now, and I believe that we have to leverage that as well, getting consensus on certain things, we're getting what we need for our constituents. So it's not just JLP MPs getting the projects and the taxpayer spend.
For CVM News, I'm Damon Phillips.
57-year-old labourer Canute Clemmings, otherwise called Elton, of Jeffreytown District, Gale St. Mary, has been charged with murder following the death of his brother at their house on Sunday, August 31. Dead is 71-year-old Dennis Clemmings, otherwise called Lenge, of reports from the police are at about 6:30 a.m. on Sunday, residents visited Dennis. Upon arrival at the premises, they saw Canute leaving the house hastily. Now, when they entered the house, they stumbled upon Dennis lying on his bedroom floor with a wound to the head. The police were alerted, and the injured man was transported to the hospital, where he was pronounced dead. An investigation was immediately launched into the matter, and Canute was taken into custody later that day. And we can now go to regional and international news.
We begin with news in the region. In Trinidad and Tobago, Education Minister Dr. Michael Dowlett has confirmed that police officers set to be deployed in certain high-risk schools come Monday will be carrying firearms. The decision was taken due to rising incidents of indiscipline and violence in schools. CNC3 News with that report.
Have I cleared it up now? And clarity was definitely needed. At Thursday's post-cabinet news briefing, it remained somewhat ambiguous as to whether or not police officers would have firearms when deployed at high-risk schools come Monday. We sought out the education minister today, who finally said yes, there will be officers with firearms at some schools deemed high risk.
Officers will be in their full kit. Some of their kits will have lethal and some will have non-lethal weapons with them.
And by lethal, you mean firearms, guns,
yes.
Right? Okay. Minister Dowlett said this initiative of police in schools will initially run for 6 months, and a report will be sent to Cabinet on its effectiveness. We understand the TTPS will use this weekend to ascertain which of the 50 schools will qualify for officers with guns. The schools are being assessed not only for violent behavior within the school compound, but also if the surrounding communities are prone to violence. And while 95 officers today have graduated from training to operate in the schools, Deputy Commissioner of Police Junior Benjamin, who is the point person for this project, said he has personally warned those officers about engaging in inappropriate conduct or relationships with the students.
In Barbados, when school resumes on September 8, students will face new rules on mobile phone use. The Ministry of Educational Transformation has outlined clear guidelines to balance technology and learning with discipline in the classroom. CBC News Barbados tells us more.
I want to draw your attention to the new Ministry of Educational Transformation guidelines regarding cellular phone use in schools, effective September 8, 2025. Firstly, in our secondary schools, students in 4th, 5th, upper 5th, 6th, and upper 6th levels may use cell phones as tools to assist learning, but only under the supervision of a teacher and with the permission of the principal. This is an important step in integrating technology responsibly into our schools. For all other students and outside of these supervised learning opportunities, cell phones must be completely turned off. Not on vibrate, turned off, and stored securely in students' bags during the school day. It is essential that we sensitize students to the responsible and effective use of cell phones, as well as to the legal framework under the Computer Misuse Act.
And in international news, in the US, nearly 500 people have been arrested during a raid on a motorcar facility in the state of Georgia. A number of those detained at the Hyundai factory were South Korean nationals, leading to a diplomatic complaint by that country's foreign ministry. The details from Al Jazeera.
The raid is described as the largest single-site enforcement operation in the history of Homeland Security. The newly built Hyundai auto plant is one of the largest in the state. An illegal search warrant was obtained on the basis of what agents say was a months-long criminal investigation into the labor practices at the plant and other illegal activity. The special agent in charge insists this was not an immigration operation.
This has been a multi-month criminal investigation where we have developed evidence, conducted interviews, gathered documents, and presented that evidence to the court in order to obtain a judicial search warrant.
During the operation conducted by multiple law enforcement agencies, some 475 arrests were made. Homeland Security says some of these had entered the country illegally, others did not have the correct documentation to work in the US. Many were employed